is, as a business owner, you are the person who cares most about your business. And that means when you have a goal to achieve, you are the person who's most likely to be pushing forwards towards that. So if you care about getting things done in your business, if you care about achieving your goals, you've got to be the one that cares about holding other people accountable in your business. And so if we're going to have to do it, because that falls to us as the business owner, the person who cares the most, let's create accountability in a way that doesn't make us sick to our stomach, right? That's what this video is all about. But the reality of it is that a lot of you out there don't enjoy holding other people accountable. It gets frustrating when you ask other people to do things and they don't follow through and do them. They should be doing it. You've told them to do it. You've reminded them. They have the skill sets to do it, and yet they might not be following through. And so accountability becomes this icky thing. It becomes penalizing, or it feels like we're micromanaging. And maybe even worse, our employees accuse us of micromanaging the moment that we remind them to do something. So we need better strategies for doing that. An even worse scenario might be that the person you're most struggling with holding accountable is yourself. And as the business owner, you know you care, and yet maybe things aren't following through. So I hope this video helps you as well, because when you're saying things like, I know I should do these things, but I don't, or I just can't seem to get to the things that matter. I keep getting sucked back into the things I always do, not the things that I know will grow my business. That's also an accountability issue. We can motivate ourselves all we want, but we also need a system for keeping us on track, whether that is your team members or that's you. In this season of setting goals and wanting to achieve big, let's talk about how we create accountability without it making us sick, without feeling like a micromanager or that we're out to punish people. Just a little backdrop. And what I found super helpful as I've approached accountability, both for myself as well as for others, is really understanding where people are coming from and their need for accountability, because that changes from person to person. So the thing that helped me most with this was actually a book by Gretchen Rubin. And you may have heard of The Happiness Project. That's one of Gretchen Rubin's books that she's written. And it's not your typical genre for business or leadership. And yet she wrote another book called The Four Tendencies, which, as she explains in that book, came out of The Happiness Project. And why do some people set out and say, I'm going to do a project every single month? I'm going to do one extra habit every month. And they say they'll do it and they stick with it. Well, another person struggles to get even out of the starting gate. And she came up with a very simple framework, but I find that sometimes simple is better. And that is the four tendencies. The four tendencies are how we each respond to both external and internal expectation. So an external expectation is me saying to you, or you saying to your employee, hey, I need you to do this thing. This is my expectation. I need you to do X, Y, and Z. That's an external expectation. That's somebody else asking us to do something on their behalf or in general. An internal expectation is when we've set a goal for ourselves. We say we're going to go lose weight. We're going to run every day. We're going to do this many sales calls or do this many networking meetings. Whatever your goal is or whatever action you've charged yourself with, that's an internal expectation. So those folks who respond well to both, since this works in their favor, right? They're called upholders. They're people who respond really well and will follow through on both the external obligations as well as those internal obligations. So whether somebody else asks them to do it or they decide for themselves that they're going to do it, they will follow through. They have that great follow through. Now, I'm not one of those upholders. I fit in another bucket. I fit into questioner, which is somebody who really responds best to internal obligations. Somebody else can ask me to do something. I think it's a little perverse sometimes. Well, that sounds dumb. Why would I do that? And until it's explained to me, until I have context and can make it my own, there's no real movement from me. I won't just do something because somebody asked me to. So that's a questioner. And questioners will tend to say, well, why am I doing this? What's the purpose of it? What's the meaning of it? What's in it for me? There's all these questions that somebody who will abide by their internal expectations or internal obligations is somebody who needs that extra context. That's the best way that I can describe it. Reading that book was such an eye-opener because in the quiz that she provides, and I recommend you take this quiz, she talks about, if you're getting to this point in the survey and you still don't know if this framework is valid, you're probably a questioner. And that was totally me as I went through it. And now I'm sharing it with you. The one that responds just to outside obligations, these people can feel very frustrated because, well, the world seems to be setting goals and meeting goals, setting goals and meeting goals. They really won't do anything unless somebody else is asking them to do that. Somebody else is holding them accountability. These are the people who are prime for having accountability buddies when they've set personal goals. But it's also true in business, and they're called obligers. These are folks who respond best to external obligations. Now, we can have a little bit of movement between categories. You're not locked in stone. So if you're listening to me and you're wondering which one you are, go ahead and take Gretchen Rubin's quiz send you to her email list. It really will break it down and guide you through which one you are. But when you're thinking about an obliger in your firm, think about how you can hold them accountable because they need that external accountability. It's not that they're faulty. It's not that they don't want to succeed. In fact, talking to somebody who's an obliger, they often feel very frustrated that there are certain things they know they should do, they want to do for themselves, and yet they don't follow through on them. That obliger responds to external expectations. And then there's a fourth category. It happens to be the minority, thankfully, because it's the rebel, and that's the person who doesn't respond to internal or external. When you think about these four tendencies, they can help us understand that accountability is going to be a mixture of things inside your business. You're going to have those A players who come in and they automatically just do exactly what you ask them to. You don't have to ask twice. They seem to read your mind and they just go for it. They set a goal, they go for it. They're the go-getters. Doesn't mean you don't find go-getters inside of questioners or obligers. They just need a little something different from you. So let's talk about 3 ways that you can hold people accountable and how those fit with those different tendencies, especially the questioners and the obligers. So these 3 things that you can do to make accountability much easier from the beginning without it making you sick to your stomach or feeling like a micromanager or feeling like you're being in a punisher role is to step into it right from the beginning. When you're assigning ownership to a task, whether that's yourself or somebody else, we'll talk a little bit more in a second about how to handle holding yourself accountable. But let's start first with holding your team accountable. So 3 things you can do. Number 1, when you start out and you're assigning a task to them, make very clear the value of it. This isn't just, I need you to do this, no questions asked. End of story, period, full stop. Talk about how the task matters. Now that's going to do 2 things. 1, it's going to help those questioners get the context. Why does this matter? How should they prioritize it? Where does it fit into the overall scheme of things? Including how something matters will help that questioner get more internal drive and internal motivation to get that task done. They might have an internal expectation that they want to serve their boss, their manager is important to them. So you might not have to do this, but unless they have that, if they question why they have to do things, give them some extra context and why that purpose matters. What that also will do as you're sharing that purpose and their importance in getting that task done, and we're talking about tasks that are truly important to moving your goals forward, so you should be able to give them context as to why it's important. When you do that, you're also setting in this connection and helping make that person feel important. The obliger who might feel resentful about always having to do what other people are asking them to do, whether they should or not is not really the question here. There are things that happen. We can decide whether they should or not, but shoulding ourselves is not going to get us anywhere. With the obliger or with the questioner, with the upholder as well, you're creating that sense of connection and validating that person's importance in your business. So this is where accountability starts, is creating that sense of connection, accountability without being icky. So create that sense of connection, that connection of the task back to the purpose and the importance of that person's role in it. You don't need to be obsequious or over the top about this. Just tell them how it matters and why it should be a priority. The next thing to do is to get them to confirm understanding of what they're about to do. Don't just talk and let it go. There's statistics out there that say we need to repeat ourselves anywhere from 9 to 19 times before somebody actually hears us and understands what we're saying. So we want to short circuit that process because you don't want to feel like you're a parrot and you're just repeating things over and over again. Go ahead and get them to confirm understanding. Repeat it back to you. And then what that allows you to do is fix any misunderstandings on the spot. Oftentimes a lack of follow through. It's not about the accountability so much as the understanding was never there in the first place. So ensure that understanding. It only takes a moment to say, okay, just reiterate back to me. What is it that you understand you're doing next? Okay, you got this part right. What about this? I want you to add this in. Got it? So that's all you need to do to add that extra layer of accountability while you're in the process of delegating. And then the last step is to set a time frame for the check-in before you leave the conversation. Sometimes the thing that most bothers our employees, our team members, any of us, when we're being checked in with is that spur of the moment, so impromptu that it's disrupting our cycle of what we're doing. And so we might have a clear plan of action, but if somebody comes in and just charges in and asks us right there at that moment, it can really be disruptive. And it also can set people into a mode of being fearful, depending upon whatever background this employee has. We don't know what they come in with. We don't know what kind of bad bosses they've had in the background. So just because you're a great boss doesn't mean they haven't had bad bosses before, and they carry in all that muscle memory, so to speak, of those former bosses. So set a time frame before you start. It just means check in with me by this date and have them confirm that understanding. And it could be by email, it could be to schedule a meeting, it could be a proactive check-in, send me the draft. We don't have to be about sitting down and meeting with somebody or popping into their office or having a whole conversation. That check-in can happen naturally. And so that's another layer of accountability that you can add that won't make you feel sick to your stomach and doesn't feel so icky. If the problem is your accountability, let's go back to those tendencies. Understand what your tendency is. Do you do better when you have outside accountability, when you have somebody checking in with you? In that case, look for a coaching environment. Inside of my program, we have a check-in process called the Action Takers Accountability Process. Also, showing up and being around another community of people, other business owners, can really help hold you accountable to your goals. So if you need some outside support, go out and get that for yourself. Don't operate in this silo of being the business owner and not having anybody that you're accountable to. You can also look beyond that and look at the broader purpose. Who are you accountable to beyond just yourself? When you don't take that action, who are you responsible for? Is it your family that you're letting down? Is it your employees? Is it your clients? Sometimes having that external sense, even if that person's not there talking to you and say, did you get this done or did you not get this done? Even if they're not there, you're still wanting to be accountable to them in a way. So that's a way that you can build in external accountability for yourself, if not going out and finding that group of people or that coach or somebody who's going to hold you accountable. And then, do you need an internal reason? Do you really need to internalize this? In which case, I say tap into the purpose and the why of what you're doing. There's that stick action of saying, who am I accountable? Who might I be letting down? But a lot of times, or I can at least speak for myself as a questioner, is a bigger purpose will be driving me forward as opposed to the punitive aspect of being accountable to somebody and maybe feeling like I'm going to get in trouble. So if you feel like you need more internal drive, look at your priorities. What are you truly prioritizing when it comes to your own accountability and your own steps that you need to take to create some accountability that feels good to you, that doesn't feel like micromanagement, and helps create a better relationship with your employees, with yourself, so that you can achieve your goals better, faster, easier. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more videos.